Welcome to Mindful Management, Creating a Trauma-Informed Work Environment, a podcast by Chefalo Consulting, where we share the knowledge, stories, and resources you need to create a trauma-informed culture that supports wellness, growth, and resilience. I'm your host, Shenandoah Chefalo. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us on today's episode of Mindful Management, Creating a Trauma-Informed Work Environment. Whatever part of the world you might be tuning in from, day, night, evening, welcome. I've been super looking forward to recording this episode of Mindful Management. I am delighted to welcome Mark Feinberg to our show today. Mark is the Chief Commercial Officer at Lucero, where he leverages his vast experience in commercialization, particularly within mental health and strategic partnerships, to advance game-based behavioral health solutions. At Lucero, Mark focuses on creating scalable care frameworks for youth and families, emphasizing the integration of innovative strategies into health systems and educational agencies. With a background that includes roles in various health-related industries and a commitment to enhancing mental health through strategic growth and operational excellence, Mark is a pioneer in fostering environments that support holistic mental health solutions. Mark, I'm so excited to have you on the program today.
I'm so excited to be here and so good to see you.
So can you talk to us about how did one go from a musician, and an accomplished musician, by the way, Mark, to wanting to work at Lucero and in this mental health space? Is there something that happened that changed your direction for you?
The veer from musician happened when I was younger, but it's part of the story. Musician required performance, and performance required being in front of large numbers of people. And that was a bit much for me. Thinking about a lifetime of being in front of people. Now, the irony in that is I ended up CEO and executive, and what do? We end up in front of people all the time. So the creative in me is still there, though. You know, it takes form in building things and creating businesses.
But was there a pivotal moment in there that sort of directed you towards this idea about mental health and the concept of the workplace as a potential healing center?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll be honest with you, like my pivot into entrepreneurship had a lot to do with my unconscious belief that the corporate setting generally was unhealthy. Like it's what led me out of corporate unconsciously at the time. Yeah. Kind of looking back, I could definitely say that was a big part of why I pivoted towards entrepreneurship. And certainly the company I'm with now, Lucero, being that we are a mental health organization, that we're focused on providing tools specifically for mental health, it'd be very hypocritical of us if we weren't truly a healing-centered organization. And
walking the walk, yeah.
And our chief clinical officer, Megan Butler, makes sure of it. There's regular check-ins with people to make sure everybody's okay. There's a lot of things and a lot of reasons for us not to be okay. So that's definitely an important part of the DNA. And in terms of how we're doing it now at Lucero, I think it could very much serve as a model going forward.
So I'm just wondering your thoughts, because you've lived in the entrepreneurial space for so long. What are your thoughts about individual responsibility as well as organizational responsibility?
It definitely starts at the top in terms of the organization and, individual responsibility. Listen, I'm to your point, I'm not perfect by any stretch. I go through periods of time where I'm not taking care of myself. And as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a leader, right, I know the things that I should be doing, but then there's the pressure of it all and the intensity of it all, and finding the right balance on all of those things is hard. Like taking time off for me is hard. And at the same time, I know that I have to create those boundaries and exhibit those behaviors at the executive level if I'm going to expect other people, other executives on the team, as well as other members of the team to feel comfortable doing the same thing. So, like, I'm still working on it. Being a business owner, being a leader, being an entrepreneur, being a founder, it's intense. It takes a toll on anyone who's in those positions. It takes a toll mentally, spiritually, physically, financially, and all of the other facets of relationships that you have with your family. It takes a toll on all of those things, right? And yet it is how we make our living. And it is, on a lot of days, something we really enjoy, right? But, like, finding that balance to take care of yourself is hard, but really necessary, and it definitely shows leadership when you do it. So I just encourage, what am I doing? Just continuing to lean into the practice of taking care of myself, like, recognizing, like, when my body feels a certain type of way, it's time to take a break. When my mind feels a certain type of way, it's time to take a break. If I see some issues between my son and I because of my work or my stress or whatever it is, it might be time to take a break and trying to stay to that, right? But it's a process.
It's a big process, and I think that process is the thing I wanna kind of dive into with, and I wanna talk about Lucero some more too and what they're doing.
I would love to get to an organization, and we're in one now at Lucero where because we're mental health, like, we have attachment conversations, right? Like,
Yeah.
Mark's a people pleaser, so he's going to have a hard time establishing his boundaries. So let's help him with that, right? And same goes for everybody inside the organization. Like, whatever the human brings to the organization is a beautiful thing, right? And, like, we all have our version of whatever it is, right? So it's like if we're allowing everybody to live out loud with that and celebrate the positives and the beauty in every single person and recognize that we all have things that we struggle with and that we're working on. And then you lean into all of that, right? Like, that creates a very healthy organization for people to show up to.
Well, what Mark needs for safety at Lucero is gonna be different than what Shen needs at safety if I work at Lucero. These are 2 vastly different things, so ask, and what you'll find is most people aren't even sure what they need. But it opens us up to this conversation of, like, what does that look like? And because we've asked what you need for safety, we can ask about, well, what does accountability look like? We can ask about, hey, Mark, when you don't show up great and it's impacting all of us, how do we get to hold you accountable and still care about you? Because it's both, right? It's not just, hey, Mark's having a bad day, he gets to be a jerk to everybody. But we can hold space that you're a human being, not going to always be at your best. And just because you're not at your best doesn't mean we have to get rid of you and you can't be part of our community. How do we do both?
Yeah, and that's a big P, right? Trust and communication. It gets down to, again, like, safety. Fear is such a big piece of who we are as humans. So, what can we do to the best of our ability to minimize that fear? And that's tied to safety, right? Safety that if you have a bad day, you're still going to have a job.
Yeah.
Safety that if you react a certain way one day, that you're still going to have a job, right? Like, we all have our days, present company included, where all the work that I'm doing, there'll be days where, like, it doesn't seem like I don't want to do it and it doesn't show up. And, I'll get triggered by something because that's what happens because we're human. And knowing that you're safe through that and knowing that if you have things going on at home, right? We're all, a lot of us are parents and the juggle with that and all the challenges that come with that. And, like, just really honoring the full human through it all. And again, I have not been at an organization that truly goes to the depths that Lucero goes to and continues to work on. And again, the fact that we're in the work, we would definitely be hypocritical if we weren't this way. Even that, right? You've got a mental health company with mental health professionals, and we all still struggle with the boundaries and with adhering to these things and exhibiting. So, like, all to say, for anybody who is trying to establish this in their culture and in their life, like have some patience and grace for yourself through the process because it's hard. It's really hard.
Things happening in the world real time and in organization at any time. And you can pick any date in history. And there's always things going on and it internally affects organizations. But the external world is also impacting people, right? Whether it's a hurricane, an election, an act of violence in your community or in the world, war, all of these things, individuals that work for you are having an impact. And I see organizations struggle with this all the time, which is that doesn't directly affect our business, so we're not talking about it. So there's all these things. What's something organizations can do to change that? Because I think we all know those things are impacting us whether we talk about them or not. COVID's another obvious big choice.
Yeah, I mean, it gets back to communication, right? Like what happens, and again, it's not easy. What happens is the pace of everything and the pace of business and the pace of transacting and doing business leads to forgetting to slow down and remember that there are human beings involved. And in a perfect world, you slow down and you do have the conversations. You create safe place within the organization, whether it be a weekly meeting or like I could say at Lucero, we've got 3 weekly meetings, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We start every meeting with an energy check. Are you blue? Are you red? Or are you green? And everybody has an opportunity to talk about where their energy is. And there's no judgment in that. And there are days that people show up green, ready to go. And there are days where people show up red and they're amped. And then there are days where people show up blue and their energy is low. And there's an opportunity for everybody to talk about why they might be feeling a certain way, right? And then we close every meeting with usually it's with something like today's thing for our collective mental health is to go journal or go draw or go spend some time in nature. What we've done there is we've established this cadence of being open about what might be bothering us on a given day, what we're bringing to the organization on any given day. And then on a good day, we honor that. Doesn't always happen, right? Like sometimes we're like, oh, so and so's having a bad day and, we forget to care, right? But like we always try to go back to like, hey, so and so might be really struggling today. Let's support them. Let's honor that. They might need some more rest, and we try to adhere to that as best as we can.
I feel like we could, Mark, you and I could dive into this forever. But let's talk about Lucero and let's talk about the game-based behavioral health solutions. Like just tell us about Lucero in general and what you all are working on from that perspective.
I came across Lucero after a very tragic event. I talk about it publicly. I had a very, very intense mental health episode in 2021. It ultimately led me to a trauma center to work on my own mental health. And I came out of that trauma center with a new set of tools that was around emotional regulation, which I never even knew that was a thing. And I'd been in therapy since I was in college, right? But like for whatever reason, like emotional regulation tools were not introduced to me until this particular vocation in terms of like naming your emotions, that you have a range of them. I thought emotions were like being like angry and sad. Like I thought those were
Good or bad,
right.
right?
I didn't realize the full range of emotions. I didn't realize what purpose they serve. I didn't realize what they meant and all of those things. And then I come out of there and I'm like, whoa, that was really powerful. I kind of set on this journey to like find a company that is teaching people how to manage their emotions at scale. And I wanted to do it in and around the youth because I'm like, damn, kind of wish I knew this stuff when I was younger. That would have really been really, really, really helpful. Right. And then you come to learn like, yeah, we're never really taught that. Right. As a society, like there's no class on emotions and like the point of them and like what they mean in the context of being human, right? And pretty important stuff. So, it's data that our human selves use to, calculate what we do, right? It's part of the creation. So, came across Lucero, amazing team. They'd built a technology that helps kids regulate their emotion at scale through a platform of resources and journeys, and they name their emotion, and then different resources that get prescribed to help them understand their emotion, help them communicate better with caretakers and parents, and all designed by the kids themselves, which is pretty awesome, right? They had the foresight to say, hey, if we're going to build something, the kids probably need to be involved. So they did that. And so I joined, about a year and a half ago. They developed this amazing technology and they were starting to get some adoption. And they brought me on to see if there was a larger commercialization path. And what we found is there is. And, it's mostly through health plans and population health and in other areas like that. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're providing this set of tools to kids and families to understand all this stuff, right? Like, if you're, the power of putting your feet in the grass, right? Like the power of breathing, the power of mindfulness, the power of picking up a something soft, to help calm your nervous system down, the power of, an art project or a science project or, being in nature, right? Like these are all things, and we have thousands of those built into the app. Like these are all things that we're not taught at any age. And that's ultimately what Lucero is focused on. And the results are amazing. Like the pre post results of kids, once they use our tool, how it's helping them regulate their emotions and how it leads to their happiness, has been incredible. So it's been amazing to be part of the organization.
I, of course, dove in after our conversation. I was like, let me investigate this further. I was totally blown away. My curiosity point, and I'm wondering if you guys are doing any research or collecting data, is although it's built for kids, what are parents and adults saying about the use of it? Because to your point, I think there's so many adults who haven't learned these tools. I mean, I find it in my work. I'm always like, ask anyone below the age of 10 in your life and they will understand this completely. It's something that happens to us in adulthood that makes us not understand feelings, but a lot of kids are really well regulated. So, have you guys, is it having impact in the adult population as well, even though it was built for kids?
I mean, we don't have data per se, but I know adults do use it. I know that we do have a crew function that brings adults into it. And I do know there's value being gained from it, for sure. And like, if it wasn't for like the cute little characters and, it clearly being designed for kids, like I've used it. If I'm feeling a certain type of way, I'll use it. So yeah, I mean the science that goes into it, it's all evidence backed and evidence based. The science that goes into it, it works for adults as well, right? Like um, there's a lot of science that went into building what we built and why we built it the way we did. But yeah, I mean it works for all ages. It's just, where our focus is kids.
What's our chances of getting it into public school systems, Mark? Since you're the strategic partnership guy, I have to ask the question.
Yeah, we're doing that. So we launched with the state of Maryland. They have a population health effort, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're partnering with schools across the state of Maryland, and we're part of that initiative. And there are other similar initiatives like that are going on around the country that we're in discussion with. We, knock on wood, speaking of stressful and speaking of managing stress at a startup, we're any day now, we're supposed to close on our next round of financing, which will allow us to grow the team and spend more time on getting into more places like schools or more schools. through partnerships and direct. So that is definitely something that we continue to work on for sure.
I love that. I know we're going to get close to time here soon, but you have such a deep background in technology that I would feel almost ashamed if I didn't ask this question. But, like, what advancements do you see coming down the pike, especially with AI, especially with all the places, how technology can aid us in destigmatizing mental health care?
Yeah, so let me start by saying I have a strong opinion about this, and I am only one person. I feel strongly that technology can meet people where they are, but that finding the balance between meeting them where they are and then getting them off technology is important, right? And that
Yeah.
comes from somebody who works for a technology company, right?
Real people relationships matter.
Connection makes a big difference. Being human with other humans makes a huge difference. I know we take that very seriously with Lucero and finding the right balance between meeting the kids where they are and then introducing them back to what like real humanity looks like, right? In all of those things. So, like, to your point, technology could certainly play a role. We're not going to put the snake back in the proverbial can in terms of social media, in terms of technology, but it could certainly play a role in being an on ramp to more healthy connection behaviors and other things that um, remove people from the screen. So I feel strongly about that. The other piece on I believe that AI done the right way can play a positive role in meeting people where they are in a very scalable fashion. The truth of the matter is, there's not enough therapists for everybody. There will never be enough therapists for everybody, and yet we all probably need one. So, what tools and what things could we bring to people that help people in the moment that they might be in crisis? There's a lot that technology can do there, but then there's a healing process that takes place that brings us back to like connecting as human beings and being in a community, and finding that balance is very hard, but in my opinion that's what needs to happen.
Um, Mark, I appreciate it so much. I asked the question because I saw a couple nights ago on television a commercial for Google's new Gemini AI. And some people may have seen this commercial. If you haven't, you could go look it up. It's intelligently done, well done commercial. But essentially, it's all these people talking to their phones, Gemini being the AI thing. I don't know, it's not a person, but like thing that they're communicating with. And there was a part of me that was like, this is so great for making people who feel disconnected when you feel like you don't have someone to have someone. And to your point, how do you still remain connected to the actual
Yeah.
humans
It's an
around
and we
you,
struggle with
right?
ands.
Ands is the struggle, right? It doesn't have to be either or, but yes, and how do we do that piece? So just appreciate your perspective. As always, we only speak for ourselves, we don't speak for whole groups of people. So before we jump in, we wrap into quick fire questions, Mark, because I can't wait to hear what you say to answer those. But where do you see the next 5 years? Tell us what you see kind of in that mid-range thing happening within mental health initiatives. What are maybe some obstacles you see that you think we're going to have to take on as some challenges?
I do think there's going to be a continued realization that digital mental health isn't going to solve everything.
Yeah.
So it's a convergence of physical, human, and technology, and finding that balance. Right. I think there's going to be a lot of work that continues to happen around that. I do believe that the data could get worse before it gets better in terms of mental health. Like, there's nothing out there that I'm seeing right now that is going to change my mind on that right now. But I do think it can get better. And I do think that there are really good people and really good groups that are working on it. I think, and it's something I'm dealing with at Lucero right now, and it's something that every company in the space is dealing with. We would benefit from some very structural changes in the health insurance market and system.
Say that for the people in the back, please.
The reimbursement process in the system is prohibitive on a lot of levels. It's, again, that's a whole other episode, but there are changes that I think need to happen. There are some changes that are starting to happen. They never happen fast enough. I want to hold out hope that those changes do happen. A big piece for me, and again, this is my opinion, um, subclinical prevention could play a huge role in the shifting of the conversation. And it has just not been something
There's
that
that magical P word, prevention, right?
prevention. There's not a whole lot of infrastructure built into our system around prevention. We're a sick care system, right? We treat people who are sick. Prevention isn't really a big focus. I want to believe that will shift. I know there are groups working on that shift, but there are some real headwinds.
Mark, what's one piece of advice? Maybe you got one sentence, one key piece of wisdom. You've spent a long time in this arena and doing this work. A new person entering, a young professional coming in, especially maybe in the mental health or human services field, they want to make a significant impact. What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Bring your true self to the work as and try to stick with that as best as you can. You're being driven to the work for a reason. Be that person. Even if it's hard, be that person.
I love it. Mark, appreciate your time. But tell us, what's the latest book or TV show you're consuming? What's the media you're consuming that for fun, for work, for pleasure? Tell us all the things about Mark. This is, by the way, how I add to my streaming list. This is how I add to my book pile.
I'm probably not that unique here. Jay Shetty, Lewis Howe are two of my go-tos. For me, I'm working on my own like meditation. So Tara Brach is somebody that I've been leaning into a lot. Guided meditations are really helpful for me, especially during really stressful times. And when you're in a startup, that's pretty much all the time. So, those are three go-tos. And this is important. I have a 15-year-old son. Sometimes he and I will just binge watch the dumbest stuff on YouTube, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Love it. There's some good dumb stuff on YouTube, though. Don't downplay the good videos on YouTube. All right. If you could have dinner with any historical or contemporary leader, who would it be? But what is the one curious question you would ask them?
I've actually thought about this. I would love to have dinner with Gandhi, and I would love to know like what framed his thinking on how he approached the work, the way he approached it. Like how far back in his youth did that materialize? And then how did he stick with it throughout the course of his life?
What's the hobby or activity that fills your heart with joy that just you could do? You forget time is a thing.
Yeah, spending time with my son. Like we just got back from this epic road trip over the holidays, and we were in the car for over 2,000
Where'd
miles.
you go? Okay, wait. Tell us about the epic road trip.
We
This is
went
the
from
best stuff.
Atlanta to Dallas,
Awesome.
and then from Dallas to New Orleans,
I love
and
this.
then New Orleans back to Atlanta, and just a lot of car time. We needed it. We really needed it. I've been under a lot of stress at work. He's been under a lot of stress at school. So just like spending 2,000 miles and then, all of the fun things.
Were there things you wanted to do? Were there things on that
Well,
journey
this
you
is
wanted
actually a
to?
funny story. So my son, who he plays football, he loves football. He's like, "Hey, Dad, there's this really cool like IMAX type theater where you can watch a football game like you're actually there on the sidelines. You know, it sounds really cool." I'm like, "Oh, where's that?" He goes, "Oh, it's Tennessee." It wasn't Tennessee, it was Texas. And Tennessee would have been a little bit closer. Texas was a longer drive, but we did go to this place, Cosm, which was incredible. Such a unique way to watch a football game. We ended up going to a real football game on Thanksgiving, which was super cool. to grow
I
up.
was at the Lions game on Thanksgiving.
Actually, the game that we watched at this Cosm place was the Lions game. So
Well, you got to watch Matt Eberflus not call the timeout.
Right. So actually, I'll send you some pictures that
I
we
love
took.
it.
It's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Like it's literally like you're on the sidelines. Such a cool experience. Then we went to a real football game, and then we went to New Orleans and had beignets. So it was just a really
This
great
sounds
trip.
amazing.
Yeah.
I wish I would have been. Tell you something, I'm a huge football person. Like I am the biggest football fan in my house. My husband likes football, but I am the real football person in my house. He watches it with me and we enjoy it together. So I love that. That sounds like an amazing road trip.
It was amazing. But yeah, that's for me, just spending time with him is really my real happy place, especially like when we could really just be ourselves.
And your Falcons are hard to root for, right? I mean, you got my boy Kirk Cousins, who's a Michigan Stater like me. We graduated
It's
from
worse
Michigan
than
State.
that. I'm actually a Giants fan.
Oh, no, Mark. I'm sorry.
I'm originally from New York. I'm a loyalist. So yeah, it's worse than that.
I'm sorry for you and the Giants.
I'm sorry for me too. I appreciate it.
I mean, but you've traded away your entire team. I'm not sure what you expected to happen.
We'll see what happens.
Saquon and the Eagles, thank you, I think, is the best I can. I'm mad as a longtime Detroit Lions fan that you put Daniel Jones in the NFC North. The NFC North is already competitive. We did not need Daniel Jones joining the NFC.
I'll tell you what, like in terms of teams that you can, my son and I talk about this. The Lions are a really lovable team. Like it's hard not to like.
There's been a lot of dark days.
There have been, but like the culture that Dan Campbell's built, and it's just a really easy team to root for.
But that's you just said the thing, the culture, which is what we've been talking about. People feel like they belong there.
Yeah, you could tell too.
And that's what I'm saying. You could use that as an example for organizations. That organization's been around a long time, been around since the 30s, has a long storied history. It was a great, amazing team, and it fell on hard times, and it's getting its renaissance. But I think for those organizations out there that think we can't do this, we've been this way too long, you can change. There can be turnarounds. Mark, tell us how people can get a hold of you, follow the amazing pieces that I saw on LinkedIn. You're always giving out great stuff. And to learn more about Lucero and the work you're doing.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Feinberg on LinkedIn. I'd give we'll
put it in show notes.
Okay.
We'll put the link in show notes.
Yeah, I always mess it up. I always forget something. But yeah, LinkedIn. And then in terms of Lucero, it's www.lucerospeaks, all one word, .com. So www.lucerospeaks.com.
Sounds awesome. Mark, thanks again. For everyone who's listening, in the show notes, as always, we'll put some links to some of the guided meditations Mark talked about. We'll put some links to him, to Lucero, some of the books and quotes that he mentioned as well. Thanks for tuning in to Mindful Management. For more resources, helpful tools, it's our mission to give you as much free stuff as we can. We're constantly updating the resources, so go check it out. If you haven't been there in a while, chefaloconsulting.com. Click on shop, enjoy, take, download, share, make copies. The point is to just give us tools to help us. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, we need your support. Like, comment, follow, review the episode on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback always helps us reach more listeners. And share this episode. Send it to a friend who might enjoy it as well. But we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to drop us a comment on Spotify, YouTube. Ask your questions. Tell us which guests you'd like to have back. Maybe you'd like to be a guest. If you know someone, let us know. We're always looking for fresh voices. This work is all of our work. So no one person has all of the answers. It's all of us, and we can learn from each other. Thanks again for listening. Can't wait to catch up with you next time. Mark, thanks so much for being a part of our community. It's a joy to have you.
Thank you so much.
Mindful Management, Creating a Trauma-Informed Work Environment is brought to you by Chefalo Consulting. To learn more about Chefalo Consulting and our trauma-informed change management and professional development solutions, please visit chefaloconsulting.com. That's Chefalo, Chefalo mindfulmanagement.consulting.com. Make sure you don't miss these transformative conversations by subscribing to Mindful Management wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember, change happens one step at a time.